Hi, welcome to 2Gauge Farm. I am going to share the best chocolate chip cookie recipe. So I hope you all enjoy it and let's get started. I'm going to make a regular chocolate chip cookie recipe. It does not have sourdough discard in it, but in the description, I will do a conversion for you if you want to use sourdough discard. I do usually if I have discard laying around, but I don't have any right now, and the family is requesting cookies. So we're gonna make them cookies. We're gonna start with 1 cup of brown sugar. And this recipe is in cup measurements, not gram measurements, because I usually whip this together pretty quickly. I have my sugar down here. This will be 1 cup brown sugar. I don't purchase brown sugar. I just purchase cane sugar and add molasses to it because that's pretty much what brown sugar is. So for every cup of cane sugar, you add 1 tablespoon of molasses. So I'm actually going to be adding 1 3/4 cup cane sugar. If you have brown sugar, it would be 1 cup brown sugar, 3/4 cup cane sugar. I'm using a 1/2 cup measuring scooper, in case you're wondering where I'm getting all these scoops. So that was a 1/2 and then a 1/4. And I'm gonna add a tablespoon of molasses to the sugar. And I'm going to mix that for a couple minutes, and then I'm gonna add my butter to cream my butter with my sugar. So my molasses is done mixing into my sugar, so it looks brown sugary. And I am going to add 1 stick of melted butter. This recipe actually does work better with room temperature butter, not melted butter. But I don't know if anyone out there is like me. I always make cookies at the last minute and my butter is never room temperature. So this recipe does work just as well with room temperature or with melted butter. So I am just adding melted butter. I'm gonna let this cream the best it can with the melted butter for about 5 minutes before we add the rest of the ingredients. See you in a minute. Okay, so my butter and sugar has been mixing for a few minutes, 5 minutes. My butter won't look creamed, so I can't show an example of that. If you're using room temperature butter, your sugar and butter will look fluffy and whipped like, and that's where you're going for it. Mine doesn't look like that. Like I said, I'm using melted butter. So we're going to start adding the other stuff. We're gonna start with, I'm reading my recipe over here. We're gonna start with, what am I at? 1 teaspoon, where is it? 1 teaspoon of cornstarch. Now this cookie, I didn't say this in the beginning, I just said it was the best cookie recipe. It is chewy, a little crispy, and it really is the best chocolate chip cookies. I'm going to be making white chocolate walnut today, but you can use whatever chip you'd like. I make this cookie with all different types of chips. Caramel, chocolate caramel, all whatever you have in your cupboard will work. So 1 teaspoon of cornstarch. We're gonna add 1 3/4 teaspoon salt. 2 teaspoon vanilla. And I pulled out the baking powder instead of the baking soda. So sorry about that. I couldn't find my baking soda. I had to stop filming because I thought it was my lab because I was working on a deodorant and it wasn't. It was in my cupboard the whole time. But anyway, here we are, baking soda. Baking soda is, it's 3/4 teaspoon, but this baking soda is a little bit older. So I'm gonna do 1 whole teaspoon, not tablespoon, teaspoon. And I'm gonna give this just a mix for a second. And now we're gonna add 2 room temperature, 2 large eggs. If your eggs are cold, just take a cup of hot water and put your eggs in it for like 5-10 minutes, and that'll warm them up pretty quickly. So 2 large eggs. And I'm gonna let that mix in. And just like to stop and scrape down the sides. You don't want to over mix cookies. So we're just mixing cookie dough. So you're just mixing till everything is incorporated. Perfect. So now we're gonna add the flour. And I'm gonna add 2 3/4 cup flour. Now, if you were going to be adding discard, you would just decrease the amount of flour a little bit, depending on how much discard you're gonna add. And I will put that again in the show descriptions on how much you would add. Pretty much, if you add, it would be 1/2 cup of discard. So discard is essentially half water. So you would be adding 2.5 cups flour with 1/2 cup of discard instead of 2 3/4 cup is how that would work, if you were curious about that. So I'm fluffing my flour a little bit so it's not compact, since I'm not weighing this out. That's the most accurate when using a cup measured recipe. And I'm just doing a 3/4 cup. I try to use the least amount of dishes when I'm cooking as possible. Because when you cook from scratch, you do a lot of dishes as it is. I'm gonna let this mix for a couple minutes until it's just barely combined, and then I'm going to take it off the mixer and I will show you that. So, like I said, you don't wanna overmix cookies, and there's still a little bit of flour that is showing in this dough, but I'm going to fold in the chips and the nuts. So that'll take care of the little bits of flour that are still popping up in this dough right here. And as you can see, I just turned on my mixer way too fast right now and flew flour everywhere. But if I wasn't making a mess, it wouldn't be me. So I'm gonna take this off the mixer. We're gonna come over here and we're gonna fold in the chips. Okay, so me showing you folding in my white chocolate chips and my walnuts, I thought I was recording and I wasn't. But I don't measure my chocolate chips or my walnuts, any type of nuts, when I'm making cookies. I just add what my heart feels like it should have. So I then fold it in using a spatula. That's what it looks like. And I added white chocolate and walnuts. I scooped with a 1-inch cookie scoop. And so this is what they're gonna look like. I'm gonna pop these in the oven for 8 minutes at 400 degrees. My oven cooks pretty true to temperature. So if your oven you think cooks hotter or not as hot, just keep an eye on it at like 6 minutes, 7 minutes. What you're looking for is you want it barely to start browning on the edges when you take it out, like barely, because that's what we're trying to get, is a little crispy and chewy. That's the mouthfeel that we're going for. So I'll see you back when I pull them out of the oven so I can show you what they look like. Took these out of the oven. So that was 8 minutes. So you see they're barely starting to brown, a little bit on the top and a little bit on the top and on the edges. Now I'm gonna set this on my stove on the cookie sheet for 5 minutes before you transfer it to the cooling rack. And that's how they're gonna continue cooking a little bit, and then they will be chewy and a little crispy and just the best cookie ever. Also, what I'm gonna do, so this recipe, it makes around, depending on how big your cookie scooper is. So I'm using a 1-inch cookie scoop, and you're going to end, if you use a 1-inch cookie scoop, you end up with around 30 cookies approximately. So that's way too many cookies for my husband and I. So this recipe, and I do this all the time, after this batch, this is the only batch that I'm gonna cook. For the rest of the dough, I am going to take a cool cookie sheet that's lined with parchment paper, and I'm gonna scoop out the cookie balls, and I'm gonna freeze them. And then once they're frozen, I'm gonna put them in a Ziploc bag and keep it in my freezer. So when I pull them out, whenever we want cookies, and I'll make just like a couple at a time, because I have to monitor how many cookies I have laying around, because I am a cookie monster. And if I have too many cookies laying around, I'll eat all of them. It's just bad news. So I don't like having a lot of cookies laying around all at once. So I'll pull out a few frozen cookies here and there. And I will link that cook time in the description as well, because when you're pulling out a frozen cookie dough, it'll still be baked at 400. Excuse my oven making noises at me. It'll still be 400, but you're gonna bake them for like 12 to 15 minutes instead of 8 minutes. So that's just an option for you if you don't want to make all the cookies at once for a smaller family. So I'm gonna let those cool, and I'm gonna show you how delicious they are in a few minutes when they're done cooling off. So they've been sitting on this cookie sheet for 5 minutes. Now I'm gonna transfer them to this cooling rack. They're pretty cool. I prefer my cookies completely cooled before I eat them, because I like my cookies with milk, and I like dipping them in milk, and I don't like warm milk. But if you like warm cookies out of the oven, this is now the time to try that. And it really is the best cookie recipe. A little crispy, chewy, still a little doughy. So good. So good. Let me know if you try this recipe. I really hope you enjoy it. Let me know if you decide to freeze it and how it turns out when you try cooking it from the freezer. And I hope you all have a blessed day and a fantastic week. And I will talk to you later.